Circular, sturdy, made of sparkling white mountain rocks, single occupancy booths. They were located between the Manzil Mutawadi and the Masjid, meaning between the House of Humility and the mosque. There were 11 rows of 11 of these beautiful enclosures that were framed by a garden. I had not known what to expect. However, everything in the City of Mercy was way more than I expected and much more than I could ever have imagined. As I walked the outdoor path that extended up until and after each of the 7 buildings, I paused at the House of Wisdom. There was a fountain there where some women, also fully covered, were seated. Across what they called the pavilion was another fountain and the walking path for men. There was a small gathering of about 7 males, all immaculately dressed in brilliant white long garments and kufis. A few thoughts occurred to me. I thought it was dope that they allowed all of us souls to move around outdoors without armed or unarmed security guards on post. Moreover, there were no escorts, hand or ankle cuffs, chains, whips, or monitors. It felt like the City of Mercy was the truest location. None of us had to be tased, tranquilized, shot, roped, chained, beaten, or threatened into submission. We each knew that we were experiencing Allah's mercy and that we had to be responsible for ourselves, straighten up and act right based on our own will and our love and or our fear of Allah. Whether or not all of us love Allah, because I still do not, I don't know. However, I do know that we had each done more than enough, had more than enough done to us, and all felt and feared the range of Allah's power. So nobody made any reckless moves. It was all peace. As some women ran their fingers through the water, and I stood facing the sun and hoping for a favorable outcome to my truth booth experience, I sensed something. My eyes searched. I saw a physique I could never forget. The shoulders, the back, and the ass, or should I say the print or outline of the shoulders, the back, the ass, was all that could be seen beneath the flawless white garment that he wore. But only he had this uniquely perfect physique, and only he wore Timbs on his feet. I waited for him to turn around just to confirm. When he did, my eyes ran across the pavilion where that nigga was standing. It was some seconds before he saw me seeing him. When he saw, he looked only long enough to recognize me. Then he switched his gaze swiftly. He faced front and walked forward towards the men's path that led to the truth booths. I felt like I had a rock in my throat. I was not angry that he didn't run or drive over to get me. I wasn't tight that he wasn't blown away by my look. I did not chase him. I wanted for him to enter his circular booth before I started walking towards mine. Soon as he did and the awesome cylinder doors closed behind him, I began my walk again. Part of me wanted to run back to the self-reflection center, find Dr. Amal, and ask her if an evil spirit, which is what the nun said that nigga was, could become good. Could a person who sold their soul to the devil get it, buy it, win it, snatch it back, or acquire it mercifully? Could a spirit that was created to do evil get a raise, a promotion, a pass, an opportunity from Allah? I felt my heart race at the notion. Is mercy deep enough, true enough, warm enough to welcome Winter Santiago and that nigga? I didn't run back to ask. It's funny how if you start to listen to a certain group of people's reasoning behind a thing, you can eventually use that reasoning on your own to arrive at the same conclusion that the person who taught you something would accept or say. I was glad that nigga was here. He must have betrayed his father. He must have shouted, La ilaha illallah, out of pure agony like I did. He must have abandoned his whips, chips, house, monkey bars, alcohol, men, women, and weed. He had to have separated himself from the whole evil team. It must have been hard for him. Once he got to the City of Mercy, and I'd love to hear the story of how that occurred, he must have chosen to express straight to the truth booth. That nigga and I were both impatient people addicted to action. There was no way either of us could sit still for too long, doing nothing but reading, writing, studying, praying, and talking about faith. Although I didn't know if I could ever forgive that nigga like how Allah might forgive him. I'd rather him go to heaven than burn in hell. I don't know if I could fuck with any guy who has a history of doing some of the nasty shit that him and his brother and father did. Although I realized that each of the 3 of them did different evil, different ways. As for that nigga, first I'd have to forget his whispering in my ear. I'm an ass man. I'd have to forget that he fucked Succubus, his own sister, of the same father. But I damn sure remember everything else. I still could feel the good feeling and impact of his everything else. Standing outside of my designated truth booth cylinder, row 1, number 11, I shook off my memory of that nigga. I am abandoning my cravings. I am emptying my mind so I can think straight and not lie once I step inside. I know a lie will be the end of me. The end, not in a good way, in a tragic way, with my mind fully awake, aware, and conscious to experience the torment. I pressed the silver button. The cylinder door slid open. I stepped inside. It was completely dark. A pleasant female voice said, "Welcome." Crazy. The voice sounded like my voice, but there was no one inside except for me, Dr. Amal had assured me. Inside of the truth booth, there is only your soul and your self-reflection experience. No one is recording, filming, or watching, or monitoring from afar. There is always the forever present Allah, the all-knowing, all-hearing, all-seeing. Who will know what happens within your experience? And only Allah is the judge. I lifted my arms and moved them around the darkness, making sure I was alone. Yeah, I know what she assured me, but I keep 3% doubt for the sake of my own survival. Soon as I began moving my arms, a light switched on. It was like a motion detector type thing. Now it is confirmed. I am the only one in here. There is no one else but me. Replaying Dr. Amal's instructions in my mind, I took out from my inside abaya pocket the tiniest paper envelope I had ever seen. Dr. Amal said to get started, I needed to place the soul dot into the thin slot on the right of where I was standing. I found the slot easily. Back in Brooklyn hustle days, hustlers always had clever slots and compartments, ways to hide things that had to be hidden or to see things without others seeing that you're seeing. I'm not saying that this thin slot was the same kind of thing. I'm not comparing the crack rock, which is small, to the soul dot, which is even tinier than a tiny pebble. I slipped it in, then faced forward. Only after the dot was deposited did I realize that I am facing a mirror. I am a dead bitch. In the truth booth, some way, somehow, I can now recognize a mirror, and I now have a reflection. I can see myself. Overwhelmed, tears burst out from my eyes, and my breath escaped from my mouth without me ordering it to do so. I stood crying uncontrollably in the mirror, spellbound by my own beautiful reflection. I put my hands to my face, so did my reflection. I felt my skin, so did my reflection. My eyes searched for my scar, so did my reflection. It was not there. Alhamdulillah, I thought without even thinking. I stared into my own eyes. My reflection stared back at me. A sudden urge rushed over me. I removed the hood of my abaya. Then I removed the abaya completely. I removed the tapered mint shoulder to ankle dress. I slid out of their leather slides. I was more comfortable naked. Now that I could see my own reflection, I wanted to see it all. I was alone. So nudity was just fine, isn't it? I asked myself. Hell yeah, it's just fine. If I was alone and no one was filming or recording me or watching me, like she said they wouldn't and weren't, it had to be fine. It was nobody else's fucking business what I did with myself. And in the instructions, no one said I shouldn't. Starting at my neck, I began caressing myself, my hands crisscrossed. My right hand caressed my left shoulder. My left hand caressed my right. I moved them down, my arms, feeling even my elbows, forearms, and then held my hands up, admiring my fingers. When my reflection did the same as I did, I dropped my hands down. My eyes searched my reflection for the position of my breasts. They were not 16 years young upright, but they were not low, drooping, or dropped. They were plump and gorgeous. I caressed them. I pinched my own nipples, not for pleasure, but to feel real. Then moved my fingers over my tight belly and around back to hips, thighs, and ass. I was searching for blemishes. There were none. Now I squatted, admiring the reflection of my toes and feet and even ankles. Check, check, check. All good. I stood up. Returning to the instructions, I pressed the inside silver button that was positioned over the tiny slot where I had deposited the dot. When I did, the lights went out. The floor moved me 180 degrees without my expecting it or doing any movement myself. Winter, a voice spoke into the atmosphere. I was 100% that the voice was my voice. However, my lips were not moving. My brain did not tell my lips to move or to talk to me. So what's up? Yes, I answered myself. Do you worship only Allah? My voice asked me. Yes, now I do, I said, my mind quick thinking that short answers are better and safer. Plus, I do fear Allah, and that's my reason to worship. With that thought, images bled through the darkness. No, the images were on the wall of the cylinder, same as a movie screen. Not a regular movie. It was like an IMAX theater. The images and the sound surrounded me in the cylinder booth, amazingly. It's me being projected onto the wall as if I am starring in a movie. But it's teenage me in the film scene. I was in some apartment. I was on a bed face down, ass up, giving head. I couldn't see to who though. The images moved. I was in a cheap car with a cheap interior, my face buried in a lap giving head. Must have been Sterling, a sucker nigga, and the only nigga I ever let drive me in an inferior whip during a personal emergency. The images moved. I was in a different apartment. No, it's a basement. I was on my knees, face down, ass up, giving head. I couldn't see to who though. But the basement was fucked up. There was a cheap curtain hanging, keeping me from seeing whoever else was there. I could hear the sounds of fucking and sucking, but I could only see myself giving head. Oh yeah, I recognize it. It's Boone's basement. The movie continued. The images moved. I was on the floor. It was a dope floor, like in a 5-star hotel. I was face down, ass up, giving head. I couldn't see to who, but I could hear the lusty breathing and pulling, mine and his breath. The images moved and the scene changed, but the action didn't. I was in an apartment on the floor, face down, ass up, giving head. I couldn't see him. I knew, though, the apartment was mine and Bullet's. So I had to be giving Bullet my specialty blowjob. I laughed. Then I pulled my laughter back swiftly. The scene changed. I was hanging upside down giving head. The scene changed. I was on the floor, ass up, face down giving head. Oh yeah, it's in the lighthouse. The images froze, my lips on a dick. I recognized my lips and the dick, of course. Now I'm standing here in the booth like, what the fuck? So what's the point? Yeah, a bitch likes fucking, likes pleasing her man. Is something wrong with that? I asked aloud. And suddenly, I actually got a reply. Not a man's voice with a thundering tone, like how they deepen and double up a man's voice on a horror film, or even when it's supposed to be like the fake voice of God. It's a woman's voice. It's mine. It's me talking on the film soundtrack. I was speaking in my fuck you bitch tone of voice, but I was talking to myself even though, in actuality, I was standing right there in the booth with my mouth closed and not speaking at all. You bowed down from age 12 and throughout your entire young life to suck dick. You stupid bitch, my own voice said to me. Now I'm thinking, how is myself going to have an attitude with myself? Or how is she, how am I going to accuse myself as though I wasn't there doing the same thing as myself? But you never bow down to the one who made your soul. Even in your afterlife, you were still bowing down to suck dick. You even sucked the dick of the devil. The voice that was mine said to me in a low volume, but with accusatory anger. The images on the wall screen switched. The setting was the fountain located before the forest that led to the city of Mercy. The sound of the fountain gushing water was engulfing me. It was powerful, like in a dope-ass movie with the top sound system and soundtrack. But on the screen, it was me when I had been standing behind young drummer as he prayed. I was standing behind him pretending and not praying and deceiving him. Of course, I remember. I remember everything. She, who is me, started talking down to me again. Up until this very second, you still have never gotten on your knees to bow down in prayer to the one who gave you life, Allah, the one, the most merciful, the most gracious, the all powerful. My own voice said to me, like she was really into it. I thought I was supposed to do the sincere prayer after the truth booth. I reminded my voice that was speaking while my lips were not speaking. I thought those were the instructions, I further explained. Are you setting up to hustle, Allah? My voice asked me as though she is slicker than me and about to catch me who was her in the lie. No, I replied truthfully. Then there was silence. The frozen images went black. I became consumed by fear. Am I about to drop? I dropped down to my knees. It didn't matter what I do in here in the booth. No one could see Winter Santiago on her knees except for me. Okay, I get it, I said. Worship only Allah. Worship contains not only fear, it contains prayer. It may have looked like I was worshiping these dudes I was giving head to. I mean, in order to pray, it involves bending forward, getting on my knees, bowing down. True, I never did that. I never prayed. But yes, I sucked a lot of dick. I don't think it's really similar. I mean, but the stances are similar. But it's not the same thing. I paused. Please forgive me, I said, lowering my head to the floor. Bitch, stand up. Stop pretending, my voice said to me in surround sound. Bitch, shut up, I said to my voice. I didn't stand up. I am not pretending. I'm doing it now. I'm praying now. Is that how your unborn son taught you to pray? My voice asked me. No, I leaped up. I bent back down and grabbed my clothing and put it back on. I'll get dressed and pray. But you are making a big deal out of this. It's no big deal. I was going to pray. I just didn't think this was the right timing. You're acting all high and mighty. It's not like I'm a murderer, I yelled at myself, or at the sound and talk of my own voice that I was not controlling. The wall screen switched back on. The images began to move. The setting was a packed outdoor parking lot. It was nighttime and zoomed in on some nervous old lady in the scene. She looked lost. Then there I was, suddenly in the scene with her. She was fumbling with her keys. The camera shifted from her and zoomed in close on me. I didn't look nervous. I looked young, determined, and fashionable as usual. But then, I cocked my right hand all the way back behind me. I was holding something. Then, fast as lightning, I used the something that I was holding to smash the nervous old lady in the head. She withered. I robbed her. Got her for her Gucci driving shoes, credit cards, and a little cash. The focus of the images on the wall screen moved from me and onto her. The frame froze on her shocked expression. A little blood trickled down from her scalp. I screamed, "Blood? I don't remember that. I didn't see no blood on her that night." Yeah, I remember her. I hit her with a sock filled with rocks. True that, I did. I'm not lying. It should not count as a lie. You're lying, I said, screaming at the wall screen. I knocked her out. I didn't murder her, though. I yelled at the accusation that the film scene starring the real me in my real life, which I clearly remembered, was making. The images moved. The scene and setting switched. The camera zoomed in on the same nervous old lady. When I first chose her for a Vic, she seemed like she had that old people's shaking disease. In the image on the wall screen now, she is not shaking. She is completely still. She's naked on a steel table. Her body is fucked up shape-wise. I didn't do that. I just hit her once. She probably died of diabetes or some other old people's disease. Then I heard the sound. It was a hospital sound. It was the sound of flatlining, the sound that machine makes when someone's heart is no longer beating. I know that much. I am not a dumb bitch. You murdered her, my voice said to me. But it wasn't me talking. My lips were not moving. My brain was not telling my voice to say these things to me. Okay, when I was 17, I murdered a senior citizen. When I said a few minutes ago that I am not a murderer, I did not lie. I just didn't know and had no way of knowing that she died. Since I did not know, that should not count as a lie that I told while here in the truth booth. I'd never ever been no murderer, so I did not lie. I just didn't know. I am not lying in the truth booth, I said, realizing I was repeating myself. I was pleading with my own voice, which I didn't control. The images moved, the scene and the setting changed. I was in a doctor's office. I could see all of the medical equipment and supplies. There was a nurse or a doctor there, but I could only see her body in her doctor's clothes. Her head was not in the shot for some strange reason. The sound switched on. The 18 years young Winter Santiago was on the wall screen. Young Winter said, "Just take it out now." Of course I recognized it all. It's the real life me. It was when I was in the abortion clinic demanding an abortion and angry that I had to make an appointment to come back and get it done. I wanted the thing out right then and there. "You murdered your twins," my voice said to me with a calm force and without my real life lips moving. There was a disgust in her voice that a bitch who was me should not have in her voice against her own damn self. Trying to restrain my anger, I explained. "Abortion is not the same as murder. Abortion does not count. If abortion was murder, it wouldn't be legal, right? On that day, I was doing something perfectly legal. I mean, it wasn't really me who killed the twins anyway. It was that damn doctor whose face I couldn't even see on the screen. It's not like I took a knife and stabbed myself in the belly. So how is it murder? Why are you saying that I murdered them? I didn't kill them. The doctor did. Either it's that or it's that abortion is not murder, like I said in the first place." I defended myself from myself. These were my lips moving and saying. I was telling my voice the truth, not a lie. The wall screen shut off. The booth went black. There was silence. Pissed, I folded my arms in front of me. I felt set up. I stood there so long my arms felt like a twisted pretzel. My body muscles were so tight. It was a standoff between me and my voice concerning our disagreement about the meaning of these real life situations. After a while, it seemed like if I didn't say or do something, the session would not ever end. I screamed, "Okay, I murdered 3 people, a senior citizen, young drummer, and Bama girl. I did not tell a lie. I didn't think that abortion was or is murder. My session should not stop just because of this small misunderstanding. You are treating me like a prisoner. I already did that. I already did 15 years on lockdown for nothing. I'm not a criminal, but I paid that debt. Winter Santiago is innocent, but I served the time. I did not snitch. I paid the debt. It was somebody else's debt. I paid it," I yelled. The wall screen lit up. The images began moving. It was a bathroom. It was not a bathroom in my Brooklyn apartment or in our Long Island mansion or even in the apartment that Bullet and I shared. I was in the big fancy bathroom in the mirror. I had a bag of Coke in my hand. I cut it open and tasted it. The scene froze. "That's not the same thing," I hollered. "That's not what I got arrested for. I tasted the cocaine just to make sure that them 2 bitches who y'all took out of that scene wasn't trying to trick me. I didn't want to show up with Coke and be a fool in front of my man Bullet. What if I didn't taste it? What if the package turned out to be flour or baking soda or some shit like that?" I said, exasperated. "Come on, I didn't lie. I really did not get locked up for what happened in that bathroom that night. I got locked up for some drugs and guns that were in a rental car that wasn't even mine. So that's what I meant when I said I am not a criminal." The screen shut off. The cylinder was back to black. I didn't want to stand there for a whole hour. I was figuring out the routine. I had to confess to my own voice whatever the truth was. I spent my whole lifetime not snitching on nobody no matter what. Now, in the end, I was being forced to snitch on my damn self. I started laughing, but believe me, it was not with joy. "Okay, I am not innocent. I was not innocent. I was never innocent. I was not a drug dealer. But I did hold my niggas' guns and drugs and move them from here to there. If that makes me a criminal, then yes, the truth is I am a criminal. I am not innocent. How you like that? I did not lie," I said. However, my voice did not say anything back to me. The screen switched on. It froze on some type of a weird word list. "Say aloud which of these sins you have committed in your earth lifetime and or afterlife." Those were the instructions listed above the word list. I just stared at the list. I thought it was some last trick that would be their final attempt to break me. They wanted to turn me into a liar, but I came to the truth booth with my mind determined to win. So I started at the top, scanning the words and calling out aloud the wrongs that I had committed in my life and afterlife. Fornication, I said aloud. I remember Pretty taught me the meaning of that word. Yeah, I fucked a bunch of niggas who I wasn't married to and who weren't married to me, but I did not fuck married niggas. That has to count for something, I said aloud to the voice that was my own. Then a thought occurred to me, and I swiftly explained myself. Yeah, I wanted to fuck Midnight, even though I know and knew that he was married. But the truth is that I never fucked him, and I never fucked no married man. Continue, my voice said to me. My eyes refocused on the list and scrolled down. I saw the word sodomy. I knew that was ass fucking, but I didn't think that I could be guilty of sodomy. I don't have a dick. If I did, I wouldn't put it in an ass. So, since I did not put a dick in anyone's ass, I skipped that one. I felt like I was aging while reading the haram list. Haram being the word used in the City of Mercy for forbidden things. The nuns called them sins. It was all the same shit, I guess. And between the harams and the sins, there were more than 60 words on the screen. I have felt teenage young my whole life. I even felt like a teenager before I actually became a teenager. I even felt like a teenager when I was no longer a teenager. I felt like a teenager even the day I got released after serving 15 years. No one could convince me then that I was a day older than 19. But in this booth reading this list, I felt squeezed. Kind of how I felt when I was lying in my casket with my eyes and lips stitched shut and my bones breaking and my body deteriorating. Okay, I need to focus. So far, I had called out that I committed 3 murders and fornication. I hesitated. My eyes hovered over the word theft. I am not a thief. Simone's the thief, I thought to myself. Wait a minute, I asked out loud. Should I confess to being a thief just because of the one incident with the old lady, the Gucci shoes, cash and credit cards? I already confessed to the murder, I hollered in frustration. My own voice, which I heard clearly in surround sound. My own voice, which I did not control. My own voice, which had been making all of these accusations against me, did not reply. The screen with the word list switched off. The film of incidents of my real life began once again. But where was this place I was seeing on the wall screen? Obviously, it's some church. So now I was like, what the fuck does that have to do with me? I never attended nobody's church. That isn't the sanctuary in the convent. That was the only church-like place I've been to. Who are these people packed in the pews? Way more people than the convent had at the last stop before the drop. The images moved. I was in the bathroom again, but this time I was inside the toilet stall with the door locked shut. I wasn't shitting though. I had the toilet seat down, and I was using the top of it to sort money. The bills were disorganized, so I was separating the ones, fives, tens, and 20s like Papa Santiago taught me to do. He liked clean, neat bills, all bill faces facing the same direction. The wall screen froze on my pretty fingers with the bills in my hand. The image faded. The booth went dark. Instead of waiting, I just got it over with. I couldn't win this game with a lie, so why delay? Theft, I screamed out that one word. I was keeping it short. I did not need to add on the circumstance or explain how I stole the money from the church event that was put together to raise funds for HIV-positive children and their families. I know I did. I know the reason why I did. But this bitch who was me, or this voice that was my own, or this film of my life that I didn't agree to or benefit from, didn't know my reasoning. My reasoning couldn't be captured on film, not even a film that seemed to be coming from the soul dot. My reasoning for all the shit I did was in my head and no one else's. So yeah, fuck it. I called out, theft. Now I would be thrown in the low category with a real thief bitch like Simone. The list returned to the screen. I just started reading off damn near every haramful, sinful word. I needed to get this over with. I needed to tell the truth, progress to the masjid, and make my sincere prayer, which I could do because I was not telling any lies. And I did fear Allah, or better yet, I should say I feared the range of power that Allah is and that Allah seems to have over my life, death, and afterlife. Fornication, sodomy, murder, theft, liar, cheater, arrogance, niggardly, ingrate, selfish, hostile, vanity, lust, wrath, envy, greed. I shouted them all. I left some out that I was sure didn't apply to me. Done, I shouted and dropped to the floor, worn out from this bullshit. What's next? What's next? I shouted from the floor in the semi-dark booth. Only the light from the word list glowed. Are you forgetting anything? My own voice, which I do not control, asked me. Why don't you tell me, bitch? You seem to know every goddamn thing about me, I said, salty. It's you who must confess it and correct, my own voice said to me. Review the list one more time to be sure. When you are sure, press the red button on the left, my voice instructed. My immediate thought was, maybe I should just confess to everything on the list. That way my voice couldn't possibly catch me in a lie. But then I thought, if I confess to do something that I am not guilty of, that would definitely be a lie. Gluttony was on the list. I didn't confess to that. I've never been a big food eater. True, I am not a glutton. That had to do with pigging out, I reminded myself. I have the definitions of these words that Study Bitch looked up and we discussed and fought over in my mind permanently. I already confessed to greed. That was greed over money, whips, houses, fashions, jewels, and beautiful shit like that. I stood up, reviewed the list again. I stopped at the word sloth. I was like, nah, I never been a lazy bitch. Even organizing a crew or a gang is hard work. Yeah, when you're on top of any gang, crew, or business, you let the low ones do some of the dirty work for you. But that's the common sense way for them to earn their way up out of their low position. I looked it over. I was done. I pressed the red button. The light came on. The floor of the booth turned me a 180 back to the mirror. I saw my reflection and smiled. My beauty awed even me. My look. I've got my look, I assured myself, but only inside of my own mind. I was not talking aloud or screaming or explaining to my own voice, the one that was outside of my own body and outside of my own control. I touched my hair. Stroking it was calming to me. It had grown back nicely. When I lifted my hand to stroke other strands, the hair I had been stroking fell out. Some was in my hand. Some was slowly cascading to the floor of the booth. I was looking down at my feet where the hair fell. As I looked down, more strands are appearing on my feet in clumps. I looked up and my hair was shedding. I touched it. My touch seemed to cause the shedding to increase. I placed both hands on my head and tried to press down and hold on to the hair that remained. I stood there for what seemed like hours, holding the remaining patches of hair. When I let go, out of pure exhaustion, all of my remaining hair fell to the floor. What the fuck? I screamed at my reflection. I was bald. I was bald like how Brooklyn Mama turned bald as she changed into crackhead Mama. Mama shaved her hair off herself. I hollered at the bald reflection that was also hollering. I yelled at my own voice that had not spoken in a long while. Mama made the choice to shave her head. She wanted to look like Grace Jones. So what the fuck is this? I did not will for this. I did not ask to be bald. Why the fuck would I do that? Even Mama looked terrible after she made that move, I shouted, but there was no reply. Me and my reflection still looked exactly the same, bald. The light stayed on even though I realized I had been cursing. But I was not cursing and mixing curses with sacred words like Mama Girl warned me not to do. Besides, I was talking to myself. So who cared if I was cursing my damn self out? Suddenly my face darkened. I pushed myself closer to the mirror. Had someone dimmed the lights in here? I looked around. No, the lights were still the same. I returned my gaze to the mirror. My face had darkened another few shades. It wasn't pretty dark, like the color of the beautiful black skin of midnight. It was like ashy dark. I started to try and rub it off. Thought maybe there was some invisible bugs like the ones from the last stop before the drop attacking my look. But my blackening face didn't rub off like ash or soil would. It didn't feel like a rash either. When I pulled my darkened face back, I saw that where I had been rubbing and touching my face now had marks even blacker than my darkened skin. "What the fuck is this?" I shouted. Then the black marks cracked and opened somehow. Inside, there was red. "Oh my fucking God. Why are you doing this? This is bullshit," I screamed impulsively. My mouth began hurting. I covered it with my palm. It did not help ease the pain. When I removed my hand, a few of my teeth were inside of my palm, and the others began falling out and hitting the floor of the booth like spilled raw rice or beans. I started crying furiously, not a whimper. It was the cry of the whip mixed with intense anger, no agony. My gums were pulsating. "Fuck it, I don't need teeth. I don't eat nothing down here anyway," I shouted. I began feeling cold. I touched my shoulders and hugged myself. When I did, I felt that the skin on my shoulders and my arms, as I moved my hands downward, was filled with those open wounds. They felt like the wounds on my face. I realized that wherever I placed my own touch, some horrible ugliness would happen in that same body part. I was like, what kind of shit is this? "I can't even touch myself now?" I screamed. "Is touching myself a sin? You were too much. You want too much. Farting is a sin. Touching myself is a sin. This is not mercy. This is bullshit. You are the goddamn liar. You are way worse than Shaitan. At least he was fun while it lasted. At least he turns people into animals. I'd rather be a serpent, a dog, or even a rat," I said, screaming and crying. But my tears made the wounds on my face burn. "I hate burning," I reminded myself. "Calm down," I reminded myself. When I went to wipe my own tears, I felt fur against my face. When I looked at my reflection, my hand was black. My nails were long and black. I shouted. It was not words. It was a scream coming from deep in my gut, a roar. "It's all fucked up now. You fucked up my look. You fucked up my currency. It doesn't even matter anymore. Nothing matters anymore." I tried to keep talking and screaming at the horrible reflection that is me. I couldn't. My tongue was in the process of growing longer and longer. It blocked me from speaking. Sounded like I talked with the lisp. It soon grew long enough to sit on my left titty. It turned colors from pink to purple to black. Now I was officially scared of my own self. The floor beneath spun me in a 180 away from my own reflection. I don't need no goddamn mirror. I don't need any damn thing. I don't worship Allah. I definitely don't love Allah. I never did. The lights in the booth turned off. The wall screen flashed on. When it did, I told myself in my own mind without a voice of my own, I'm not going to watch anymore. I tried to move my eyes away, but they were locked in the direction of the screen. I tried to move my head. Both my head and neck were locked like a paralyzed person. On the screen, close up, was me riding in that nigga's whip. I opened my window and threw the Holy Quran out into the darkness. Yeah, that was me. I threw out that ridiculous big-ass book. So what? I don't give a flying fuck. The floor beneath me opened up. I was sucked through the floor by a powerful, heated vacuum. It was not the thrill of the roller coaster. It was not the high or soaring feeling I had while my hand was being held by young drummer. It wasn't like the people who I had seen enjoying hang gliding on the TV. It was a dangerous, endless, heated falling, maybe like being trapped alive in an exploded airplane and on fire the whole way down. A shocking, terrifying drop with no warning and no bungee cord to rebound, no parachute to open up, no net to catch me. No, I was not simply falling. I was being thrown and slammed and forced down. I could feel that it was intentional, awfully mean, and a forceful, painful, punishing fall.